Shalom and welcome back to the Rashi Nosh. I'm Pastor Matt.
And I'm Kara.
This week we are in Parasha Teitzei, and in our Torah discussion Rashi commentary from the JPS, which by the way, after this week, there's only 3 more weeks of Torah portions. We get to the end of Deuteronomy and go through Parashat Ha'azinu, and then we are into the High Holy Days and Sukkot, and then we roll the scroll all the way back, and it's exciting. So we'll see where we go next year in this Torah cycle. So stick around for the adventure. If you've not already done so, please subscribe to our channel and like and comment on this video so that the algorithm will pick us up. And share this video on your social media platforms so that as many people as possible can benefit from this teaching. It's been a great joy for us to be doing this since last fall, going through the entire Torah cycle with this commentary. It's definitely something that will stay on my bookshelf and will refer to it from time to time. It's been a real adventure going through it. So on page 167 of this wonderful commentary, the first sort of entry into this week's Torah portion is what we're going to look at this week, and it's called Lending a Hand. And it's something that has happened to us before. And so we're going to talk about that when we get to our discussion question. So imagine you see 2 cars parked on the side of the road, one with a flat tire. Since you observe 2 able-bodied men changing the tire, you assume a passerby has stopped to assist the hapless driver of the disabled car. Now, imagine the same scene, except that one of the men is busily changing the tire while the other is reclining on a lounge chair, sipping a pina colada. A verse from Parashat Teitzei alludes to both scenarios. If you see your fellow's donkey or ox fallen on the road, do not ignore it. You must help him raise it. This is something that you must do with the owner. So Rashi makes the comment about this phrase, about doing it with him. You must lift the animal with its owner. But if he walked off and sat down and said to him, the one providing assistance, since you were commanded, if you want to load, go ahead and load. In other words, since God has commanded you to help me, you go ahead and do the work and I'll just sit by. So if the owner says this, if the one you are helping says you do all the work, then the helper, the one providing assistance, is exempt, is what Rashi says. So Rashi explains that a person is required to assist another whose animal has fallen, but only when the animal's owner is also attending to his own animal. If the owner shirks his responsibility and seeks to shift the burden of raising up his animal onto the other person, then the other person is absolved of any further obligation to assist. Rashi highlights that people in need of assistance must act to help themselves to the extent that they can. Otherwise, they forego the moral claim to the other person's assistance. Assisting others entails a partnership in which each party upholds its obligations. I think this is extremely fair. I think the way that the Torah lays this out, and the Torah is always big on not only justice, but on fairness, on mercy, and grace, and compassion. And it made me think of something, before we get into our discussion question, it made me think of something that in our state, and in probably other states in the United States, we have what's called a Good Samaritan law. And that Good Samaritan law says, if someone needs help, and you honestly try to help, but you're unable to do so, or let's just say, God forbid, someone was having a heart attack, and you go and give them life-saving assistance. You give them CPR. You give them the proper thing, but the person is either injured while you're doing the CPR, or God forbid, they don't survive. According to this Good Samaritan law, because you are honestly trying to help, even though the person was injured or the person didn't survive, the family cannot sue you because you were honestly trying to provide assistance. The same is true with roadside assistance and things like that. So it makes me think of that kind of law. And in fact, that law, as I mentioned, is called a Good Samaritan law. So here is a question. Have you ever provided assistance to a driver with a disabled car? If not, why not? And what happened? That, I think I can say that we have helped someone push a car off the street that maybe died, maybe the car stalled or it ran out of gas or something like that. We've done that many times. I mean, that's just what you do. You jump out and you help.
I ran into a lady in a parking lot.
Ran into a lady?
No. I mean, I came across a lady in a parking lot whose car wouldn't start, or truck. It might have been a truck. And I said I had jumper cables, and so I had never jumped a car before, but I figured the two of us figured it out, and it was an adventure.
But she was fine and whatever.
Yeah, we got her going.
You didn't explode her truck, and you didn't need the Good Samaritan.
I looked at the instructions online, and it showed me how to do it.
Very good. Now this one, I know for sure we have had this happen, and that is, have you ever received assistance from a stranger when you had finished when you had a disabled car? And if yes, what happened? So I think we've actually talked about this on the Pearls of the Torah before, but if we haven't, I will tell you that we were on the way to, this wasn't the same trip with the lost key, was it?
I don't think so.
This might have been a different trip.
But
we were going with the family when the kids were small to an amusement park. And we got a flat tire on the way. Now, I am not a handy person. I know the mechanics of how to change a tire. I know what needs to be done. I'm not skilled in how to do it. So we had a flat tire, and a man who was also with a family pulled over and helped us put our spare tire. Thank God we had a spare tire. Put our spare tire on, and then we were off on our way, and we went to the amusement park.
Of course, we thanked him.
Of course, yeah. Now, as we got a little delayed, but not too bad, to the amusement park, we got in line, and we looked right in front of us. The family right in front of us in line at the same amusement park was this man. And I still have a picture on my phone of me standing next to this gentleman, with my arm around him, the one who stopped to help us.
Because it wasn't like it was close. We didn't break down close to the amusement park. It was closer to our house.
Yeah, so we were probably
an hour and 40 minutes away. So it was probably 30 minutes into our journey. So
what are the odds that he would be at the same place, but especially
the same
timing? There are many different lines to go through in the same line and right in front of us. So that, I think, is pretty awesome. And I provided what help I could. I handed him tools and got out the spare tire and got out the jack and did things. But he knew exactly what to do, and it was really quite amazing. You had a story about, helping jumping this. So now you know how to do that.
I do. Now I've done it several times now.
So that now if I need jumper cables, you can. I know the mechanics of it. But anyway, how would you characterize the humanitarian principle Rashi is describing? Can you give examples of where this principle is followed in providing assistance to others, as well as examples of when people are helped even when they do not work in tandem to help themselves? What are the relative merits of these two approaches? Now, there was something that was very controversial in the 1990s that happened in the United States. I did not find it controversial, but many people did. And there are things in the U.S. government that are moving toward this type of idea again. And that is, if you get assistance from the United States government, like if you're a low-income person and you can't pay your bills or you don't have enough money for food, we have social programs that can help people that are underprivileged. We help the poor in our country. So one of the stipulations that came out in the mid-90s, about 1995, 96, there was a law that was passed that said if you receive government assistance, you must have some kind of a job unless you're physically unable to work. So the idea was you might not make enough money to buy food or pay your bills, and we will help you do that, but you can't just sit around and make zero money and expect us to pay all of your bills. Mm-hmm. And I did not find that unkind or or not compassionate, but many people did. And it was a very controversial thing because of that. Now, one of the things that is controversial now that is happening is there are some reforms that are going through that say if you receive government assistance for food, you can't buy candy bars with this money. You can't buy Coca-Cola with this money. You know, you need to be buying milk and bread and eggs and cheese and, nutritious food things, not junk food. And some people are very upset about that because just like the person who was on the side of the road sipping the pina colada watching someone else do the work, if you allow people to do that, then they become accustomed to doing that. Why should the law change and all of a sudden I need to get a job when I've never had to have a job before? Why the change? You get accustomed to a certain way of doing things, and maybe you get a bit entitled, with that kind of a thing. I don't find these types of things not compassionate. I don't find them unkind. I like the idea of giving someone dignity and having them help out with what they're doing. To have some sort of a part-time job or to have something. How do you feel about that?
I agree because, like you said, if you don't, people end up getting, and we see this in our country for sure, a sense of entitlement, like they're owed this stuff, where it's like, well, I mean, it's not just created out of thin air. These resources are being funneled to help, but at the same time, you need to be able to appreciate them in a way that is like temporary assistance or, helping you get a leg up rather than just full-time, caretaking. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise then, like you said, they don't get a job and they don't whatever. So, and I feel like that's not even just in that department. In lots of places, if you just help too much without expecting anything in return for too long, then they won't help themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? Same thing with even people who are, not wanting to help themselves, even when they're struggling with like an addiction. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, in the beginning, we need to just jump in. We need to just do it for them and help them. But at some point, it has to be their decision to change, and they have to be taking ownership and doing the work themselves, because you can't always do it for them. You can't,
right. An interesting example is sometimes on our streets here in our town, there will be someone on the corner of a major road with a sign. And sometimes that sign, the typical thing, at least in the United States, is someone will hold a sign. It's always made of a cardboard box. And it's always written in black marker. And I think that sort of gives off the idea that this is the only way that I had to make a sign. Mm-hmm. I see this is proof that I really am disadvantaged. Mm-hmm. But usually the phrase that used to be used was "will work for food." Now, I don't see that one much anymore. Mm-hmm. What I see is anything helps, God bless. Some people say, "Why lie? I need a drink." They try to be funny with it. Now, the truth of the matter is that we're all so busy. I don't think that people are stopping someone if they have a sign that says "will work for food." I did see one the other day. If someone says, "I need help, willing to work." Now, I don't think people take the time out of their busy schedule to say, "Hey, come by my house." Besides, you don't know who this person is. Yeah. You don't know if you can trust them. And so it's easier, even if they say they're willing to work, it's easier for you to just give them money. But there's a really interesting correlation with where we're sitting right now. And I don't even know if you know this story, or maybe you do. But there was a gentleman, when this house was being built in the early 90s, the men of our church and of our community built this house with their own hands. We had a lot of people in our church in those days that were in the construction field. And so they donated their labor. And so this house was literally built by my father, my grandfather, uncles, cousins, and men of the community and men of the church. And there was a man at that time that used to ride a bicycle. He was homeless, and he would do little odd jobs to get money enough to have a place to stay or money enough for food. And this gentleman, without fail, would come by, conveniently a lot of times around lunchtime, but he would stay and work. He would work for his food. It was something that I think we're observing here from what's going on in the Torah, a very biblical principle. The Bible says if you don't work, you don't eat. So unless someone is physically unable, if someone has a literal, legitimate disability, then of course, and there were always people that sat even in the temple courts and asked people for money. We see it even in the New Testament. But this idea of this gentleman actually doing work in exchange for us feeding him at lunchtime, that's the way that gives us that dignity. It's the way that gives us purpose. It's the way to do things in a biblical way that, again, I don't think is unkind. I don't think it's unkind for us to expect, yes, I'm glad to help you. Are you willing to do something? Are you physically able to help? And I think that's the way it used to be in our country, kind of in the 1950s or something. Someone might be a stranger in town and you pay them a little money and they paint your house or something like that. I wish there was a way to kind of go back to that idea of, yes, I want to help you, but what can you do to help yourself? And here we see that right in the scripture.
Yeah. Yeah, because it would be kind of weird if, somebody in your congregation really needed help doing yard work or doing something. You ask them, they say, oh, actually, I can help you fix that plumbing problem. And they come over and then you just go watch TV and just let them do, you know what I mean? Like, it would just be it's just weird. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you should definitely be assisting, even if you don't have the specific skill. Right. You're helping. If something falls in a ditch, you can't physically lift it, but your neighbor can, or the two of you together, Right. You definitely need to be involved and not just assume people are just going to do it for you.
And I think that shows gratitude. So if someone's going to help you, put in some work yourself as well. Do your part. And then together as a team, as partners, you can get the work done. I think it's a good lesson for all of us. So maybe, and in this modern world, I know we have to be careful about our safety and things, but maybe you will have an opportunity to help someone on the side of the road or with some food or something like that. Of course, be careful, be wise, but perhaps you'll have the opportunity to do a mitzvah. We hope you will. Thank you once again for joining us on the Rashi Nosh, and we will see you next time. Shalom.